Creo 4.0, Lesson 2, Part 1. In this lesson, we're going to load a standard part and then look at some of the functionality of the display and mouse buttons and other aspects of just utilizing the program. So I'm going to go over to the 3D model space here, and I'm going to click on the standard parts library, and we're going to go into the English catalog. I don't know why they did that. Of course, the English have nothing to do with this anymore. And at the very bottom, it's going to ask for us to accept the terms. We will do that. And I'm going to go over here and show all categories so we can see everything here. And we want to go down to the very bottom, and we're going to go down to the T-nuts. And under the T-nuts, I think we use number 4 here. And we want to choose our, I'm not sure what the difference is the top and the bottom here, but I have had some cases where some things didn't come in correctly depending on which one you choose. We're going to choose the one on the bottom. And download the model. I'm not going to bother to view it. And take this and drag and drop it into your screen here. Open. And if you want, at this point, I think follow the steps in the book, you can actually go and save as, save it under a different name. I forgot to change my working directory, as you can see. And while I'm there, maybe I will change it. So if I look through some of these choices here, you can see I'm dealing with the files, I'm dealing with preparing for the work to be done, and managing the session. And since I didn't select the working directory, I think I'm going to do that right now. So I have it in a specific spot that I want it to be in whenever I want to retrieve it. And again, you can save it as under a new name and then open it up and work on that file rather than the standard name that came with the part, this one right here. So we're going to start off, and you can see we got a variety of things we want to do here, you know, with the user interface, the models. We did cover something before in a previous lesson. And if I hit my control 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it toggles between the types of display. That's the same thing as going up here under the graphics toolbar in here and choosing these. Now normally I work in the shading with edges. That's just the one I like to work with. This is also can be found up here in the view, and I'm going to turn on the datum plane tags. And you'll notice these are DTM 1, 2, and 3 rather than top, front, and right. Any model that was created, I think it's Wildfire 2 or 3 or before, going all the way back to 1989, it uses DTM 1, 2, and 3. It doesn't use top, front, and right. So you'll see a little bit of a difference. In fact, if you go under here under saved orientations, you'll see that we only have a few choices. It's not giving our standard top, front, right, which is normal now with the Creo series of software releases. So for instance, since we're here, let's just click on View Normal, and whatever we select, it'll turn and we can view it 90 degrees or normal to that particular selection. So again, we are limited here because we have a model that was created quite a while ago, I think. If we go into File, let's see if I can go out and find something in here. Well, we'll leave it alone for right now, but later we'll show you some of the things you can do to investigate what's going on here. Now, we might as well look at this toolbar, graphics toolbar. First of all, if you hit your right mouse button when you're hovering over it, you can turn on a whole bunch of other options. It gives you more choices. You also can put it in another spot. We can have small, medium, large. Let's go to medium. And let's go to location and put it on the right-hand side over here. And if I double click on the name up here, it'll just like Windows, it'll open up completely. And we got a nice space to work with. And in fact, if I go down and I click on full screen, you'll see that we have the toolbar over to the right-hand side, kind of tucked out of the way, and we can do work much easier. Now, right mouse button at any time will give you the particular set of commands that are available. You can see these are the only things that are available right now. If you wanted to customize this, you click customize and you could put in other elements, other commands in here. You know, it depends on what you're going to work with the most and what's going to make it more um, efficient when you're doing your projects and your modeling. And everybody's will be different. So that's why they don't put a lot of stuff. Some CAD systems have hundreds of choices, and you really don't need them all for every project that you're working with. But in here, you know, anything that you wanted to add in there, you could. Any version. You can also select in here and cut it down to a few choices for a particular selection. And basically all you're doing is you're just taking them. Now, how about model colors? You're just taking it and you're just putting it in here wherever you want it to go. Click OK. And I'm going to hit my F11 key and come out of that so we can have it. And I'm going to bring this one back over and put it on the top so that we see it up here for our selections. Now, any of these you can click on. For instance, if you click on this, you can select all of these items at once and have them go away on the screen. Or you can also go and click on these and it'll take certain things on, toggle them on and off. So by having all these on here, you're not using this choice as much. You can see as soon as I do that, these become active. So these are kind of redundant. You don't really need them. And you have your annotations and you have your coordinate system in the middle of the model right here. Now, to rotate the model, normally you just use your middle mouse button, press, and then rotate. If you turn this off here, the spin center, and you click somewhere, it will rotate about that position. And at any time, right mouse button, standard orientation, or Control D will bring it back into the standard orientation. And that again is determined by your setting. So if we go into File and we go into Options and go into Model Display and we select Isometric, then we can work and say no here because you want to always start with the other trimetric. So in fact, let's look at that. Now if I started a brand new part right now, take a look at what the datum planes look like. So they look a little odd. They're hard to see. If I rotate them around, I can see a little bit better. So it's the reason why we normally start in trimetric. And I will get rid of that one. So we have our commands that we can select here. For instance, we have Refit. That one is used a lot. We have Zoom, which is kind of useless because you just use your middle mouse button and roll it. That's the same thing. In fact, wherever you put your cursor, that's what will bring that to the zoom point. Negative here, zoom out. Repaint, sometimes when you do some work, it doesn't automatically, even if it regenerates, it may not repaint. We won't worry about the scene. And we talked about all these already. We've got our standard views. And in this case, we don't have them, only the selections here, standard orientation. Default orientation, you can actually reprogram this one to be anything you want. For instance, if we wanted to program it to be over here, and I'm going to turn my spin center back on so it's easier to grab a point. It'll go right to the middle automatically rather than it being at the position for rotating. So reorient, and we won't go into the reorient right now. We're just going to refit, and if we want to, either right mouse button, standard orientation. And while we're there, you can see I put model colors in there. So let's click on model colors. Oh, nothing happened. That's interesting. Let's go over to view. That's very interesting. I'm not getting my appearances menu as being active. And I'm not really sure about that because I don't remember doing anything special or unique about it. So let's go over here. We can get into perspective view. And again, we have our display here. We have our display here. And we have our control 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have quite a few different things that we can select. I'm going to turn off this one. Section, if we wanted a planar section, we just select a particular thing that we want to use. Let's use this one here instead. And you can see we can have a section cut. We'll come out over that. So I'm going to go back over to my model tab. And we're really just taking a look at an existing model. Now, there's a lot of commands that will activate. So here we have right mouse button. This is all that comes up. If I come in here and click on this hole, and I'm going to get these automatically pop up. So I don't have to use my right mouse button anymore. Just click on it, and these are the choices. If I hit my right mouse button, I'll get more commands. Longer selection here. Now, for instance, let's say I wanted to delete that hole. It's going to say, hey, that hole is referencing other things. I'm going to say, okay, I still want to delete it. And then this little menu manager is going to come up. And this is one of the reasons why people still keep the system. Normally, this would have been over here. They don't use full screen. But normally, it's not going to be hidden. And in this case here, I'm going to delete the relations. In other words, that hole and that chamfer were had a relation that tied them together in some fashion. So I'm going to delete that. Now, anytime I want, I can just come up and I can undo that. And I'm still wondering why I'm not getting any of my choices here for appearance. It might be doing with a little bit of a bug with this here. I'm going to come and get rid of this. Okay. And see whether or not, nope, still not getting an option. That's kind of odd. It's going to perplex me. Now, I deleted a hole. Now, what if I just wanted to double click on it, the whole model, and I'm going to get all the dimensions. So, for instance, if I want to double click on the 115 and I want to make it 2 inches, and then I'll hit my left mouse button a couple times and it will regenerate. So I have that. If I want to go back to my previous one, I hit undo. Now, if I want to select a feature, no matter what it is, in this case here, it's that first extrusion. And you'll see the word protrusion here because, again, this is a very old model. And they used to be called extrusions, and now they're called protrusions. If you don't like the name, by the way, you can type anything you want here. The name you put in there is irrelevant. A lot of people will name their geometry based on what you want it to represent, or so you can clearly see it in your model tree. And by the way, since we're over in the model tree, let's look at the settings here, the tree filters. I'm going to turn these all on. I like to work with them on. A lot of people do not. Click OK. And then if I want to see more information, I can go to my tree columns. And I'm going to move some of this over into the displayed side. Apply. OK. And what that gives me is more information in the model tree. And I can adjust these columns to see what it is. So we got our names, we've got types, etc. And you can see that, by the way, the word extrude is here. So it's coming up as the feature name now. If you wanted to rename this one, for instance, this one you wanted to call it the front, you can call it the front. There is a little bit of a trick here. If you want something to have top, front, and side for a drawing, if you rename one of these to front, it'll automatically give you that when you go into the drawing mode. Otherwise, it will not use the template because there's nothing on your model that says front as far as your datum planes go. So I'm going to slide this one back. Keep a little bit of it open. And in this case here, I'm just going to select something. It doesn't make any difference. You'll see that it selects that particular first feature that I have. And right mouse button, or I can just select it and move my cursor here. And I'm going to pick Edit Definition. I would say 70% of the time you're using Edit Definition for something after the original geometry has been created. So in this case here, I've got options for my depth. I also can click on right mouse button. I can go into the internal sketch In other words, the sketch that was used to make the part. And even here, I've got more options as far as how I want to adjust this to look. Now, if I make this a little bit radically changed, let's put it that way, right mouse button, check, and middle mouse button to finish it. And you'll see, in this case here, it didn't fail, but obviously my hole and my chamfer have been altered quite a bit. And you can see down here, it gave me a little notification saying that it didn't regenerate correctly. And you can see the round, which was probably, I'm not sure where that round was, but I'll go up here to model and regenerate, and you'll still see that this round here is failing. So in other words, the round doesn't fit anymore in this particular configuration. I'm going to undo it. Oh, the round is this little tiny thing right in here. Okay, that's why I couldn't see it. And again, see, I just selected that feature. That's a separate feature from the first extrusion. And I can go in here and I can do work on just that. I can look at the size of it. And let's make it 0.1 and see what happens. A little bit bigger. Left mouse button a couple of times, and then I have it. Now, as far as commands go, a lot of times you're having a hard time finding a command, especially if you used Pro Engineer or some older version of Creo. And if you come up here and you click on Command Search, and I'm going to type in PRS for perspective. And when I put my cursor here, it'll show me exactly where that is. It's on the View tab, and it's in the ribbon over here. So if I click on it, you see it's View, and here's Perspective. So any command that I'm looking for, I can find in this manner. As far as information goes, we have our help up in the corner. And it's going to load it. This is directly from the internet, so it's not in a disk anymore on your own system. And then you can ask for whatever it is that you're looking for as far as, and we'll go into part modeling. And you can see, you can select a whole bunch of stuff based on what you want some information on. Now, sometimes they give you samples, sometimes it's just a lot of words and commands. So there's also the PTC University, if you have that PTC Learning, and if you have that module and it's available at your school or through your company, you can go in there and get some more information that way also. So I'm going to go back over to Model and take a look and see which other ones I really want to cover at this point. The information tools. So under tools, we have feature information. You click on a feature and it'll tell you everything about that feature. If we want model information, it'll tell you the information about the whole model. And again, nice to see the word extrude here because that's something we added to it. And it will highlight over here on the model if you select on it. Feature list tells you everything that was created in the direction or the history of its creation. We have reference viewer, which just doesn't really work that much because it's only one part. And there's not a whole lot of information here right now. We'll use that at a later date. Compare part, find. Let's see if there's anything else in this thing. Utilities, model intent. We'll be covering many of these capabilities at a later date. I don't want to get too deep into it right now. We could go into analysis. We could measure something. And how about just measuring the diameter, and just click on this here and it'll give us our diameter. So the measuring commands, anything you want. Let me get rid of the window here, and you can see any of these selections: angle, distance, etc. I'm going to go Control D, go back into my standard view. And let's see, model tree. Anything you need to do can be done on the model tree in most instances, especially if you have the model tree completely expanded. So if you want to do some work here instead of working directly off the model, sometimes this is an easier place to find a complicated parts features, something that you specifically want to go to without trying to navigate through the model. Now, when you are trying to do that, let me repaint. If you put your cursor here, I'm going to put it right here, it is picking up the axes. But if I hit my right mouse button, just click it, it'll go to the next thing that it finds, which is the hole. And the next thing after that happens to be the edge on the other side. And then the surface on the other side. And then back. So it'll filter through what's there directly behind the cursor by hitting the right mouse button. And the right mouse button, when you click on it, when you put your cursor on something, select it with your left mouse button, right mouse button. These are the options, but if you hold it down, we mentioned it before, you can actually get a lot of other capabilities with that selection. Now, file functions, I think we covered those a little bit. You can save as and save a copy, change its name, just plain save. It won't let you use the same name, so you'd have to change your directory. You also save a backup with the same name, but it will then back it up, in this case to the current directory. So you got to look and see which of these capabilities you really want. And in save, you can see these are the recent files. So it's very much Microsoft oriented in that way. Now, one of the other capabilities up here is flexible modeling. And you can go through the tutorial, but I'm just going to select the front here. And I'm going to click on the move command, and it'll give me the dragger. And with that, I can, within certain ways, directions. For instance, if I try to pick this up and I go this way, you know, that's something a little bit odd. Let me go check. All right. So if I want to, I can drag it and I can rotate it, but only within certain parameters. So if it doesn't make any sense, like dragging it up like this, you can see it comes out this way, even though I'm dragging it up. So there are things that you don't necessarily want to use. You want to make sure, for instance, let me go back a little bit. And by the way, it puts these features on here. Now these are, they're not going to have dimensions associated with them. That's the difference here. So when you have a historical parameter-based model, that's a little bit different. Here you're actually just kind of grabbing something and then moving it. Let's see if we can grab this one. And you can see I'm moving it up. And what if I tried to rotate it a little bit? So it's a little more free form. But if I go and I double click on that, you know, it's still just giving my original size for the chamfer. It's not allowing any type of dimensions to show up. You can see those are not here. If I click on the hole, let's say, or even double click on the hole, you can see that the hole is located in the middle. If I double click on the protrusion, extrude, it'll give me all my dimensions. But if I click on my move command that I put in there, the move feature, it doesn't give me any choices. So I'm gonna close this one. Well, let me go back to the original. That's approximately the original. I'll regenerate it, and let's go and Control D, get it in the middle. Excuse me. Now I could save it at this point, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to close it. Now, when I close it, it's not going to be saved. So that's the thing. If I save it, which I can do, now when I close it, it's still in session, but it's also been saved. Some things will preview, some things won't. Here's my preview. So here it is. Open. And it's really weird. I'm still not getting my appearances. I was trying to see whether or not I could shake it loose and see what's going on with this. So maybe there's a little bug, or maybe I shut something off accidentally. Now, nothing's on the screen. If I go over here into Manage File, I can delete all the versions of if this was active. Or in here, I can go to Erase Not Displayed. So it's still in session. And if I click on that, you can see two parts are still there. And if I click OK, they're not anymore. So if I go open and I go to session, in session, there's nothing in session anymore. So just because you close a part, if you didn't save it, you can open it up again from in session. But if you shut off Creo and then you come back on, if you have not saved it, it's not going to be in session and it's gone. So make sure you've always saved your work if you want to. And save after every feature. That's important. And I'm just going to open up another part and see whether or not, yeah, I'm still not getting my appearances. So something became disconnected when I was working, and I'm not really sure what it is. So I would probably have to shut off Creo in order to go and find out what's going on with my colors. This ends part 1 of lesson 2.